Good evening. Welcome on this live webinar. It's going to be the last webinar for this year. And today's topic, we're going to focus a little bit on how can we make back prevention more easy for our patient. And we are all professional therapists. You are a medical doctor, physio, osteopath, health professional. You care about your patients, and we would like to guide our patient not only to treat him when he has back pain, but also to take care about his future. And yeah, let's see what we can do about that tonight. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Steven. I'm responsible for the European Teaching Group of Orthopaedic Medicine / Global Celiac Institute. And together with my international teaching team, we offer international courses for health professionals. And we do that, pretty worldwide. Nowadays, our courses are available in about 40 countries. So that's not bad. And at this moment, I'm broadcasting live from our GCI International Training Center. This is the place where I offer the unique Mastermind private training program, a 7-day training program with maximum 4 participants. Okay, back pain prevention. I believe that it's difficult to incorporate good prevention if we don't have a good diagnosis. Everything starts with an optimal diagnosis. And of course, this could be a little problem because depending on the country in which you live, some diagnoses are more popular than other diagnoses. It's strange. We have one, let's say, universal anatomy, but nevertheless, there are real, let's say, diagnostic interpretation changes between different parts in the world. Okay, that's fascinating. There are dozens of diagnoses. Let's imagine our patient is visiting, hypothetically, 10 different therapists. No matter what their specialization is, their professional background, visiting 10 different therapists and telling, let's say, always the same story, most likely this patient will go home with 7 different diagnoses. And that's perhaps a little bit strange. And one of those reasons is that most likely there is not enough standardization when it comes to the diagnostic procedure. Now, which tools are we using? Which kind of functional examination? Do we use medical imaging? How do we interpret that? Elements from the inspection, elements from the history of the patient. That's all quite important, but I notice worldwide there is quite a big variation, and some tools, they are pretty reliable, and some other tools, they are, to put it mildly, they are less reliable. But tonight, I'm not going to talk about the diagnostic procedure. This is a subject of many of my other films, other webinars, which you can all find on orthopaedicmedicine.eu, my online learning platform. But nevertheless, nowadays, when we are confronted with back pain patients, of course, we always have to look at the patient from the biopsychosocial perspective. You cannot just put one etiquette, so to speak, on the patient and label the patient and say, voila, that's your problem, and exactly there is the problem, and you have a blocking between L4 and L5 and left rotation or whatever. Patients like that we put labels on the patient, but certainly when it comes to back pain, labeling is quite a dangerous activity and most likely not very relevant. Mostly, certainly when you talk about mechanical back pain, mostly the diagnosis is more a specific diagnosis. But let's focus a little bit on the bio part, but because, okay, you have the other elements, but don't underestimate the bio part too. And then the main question, certainly when we are thinking of prevention, the main question is going to be, is it a rather mechanical problem or is it a rather non-mechanical cause of back pain? And that's quite important. And just to refresh our minds a little bit, but when we do an extensive history taking of the patient, inspection, functional examination, there are some elements, as you can see on the screen now, which are, let's say, a little bit suspicious, as well as those elements on the next screen. And if you hear in the story a combination of those elements, then you might think of a more inflammatory cause of the back pain. And then, of course, our preventive strategy is going to be slightly different. Not only the preventive strategy, but also the treatment strategy. When we focus on the mechanical part, on the bio part, and more specifically mechanical back pain, then diagnostically it's quite interesting to make a distinction between three subgroups. And this is inspired by colleague Robin McKenzie. He put forward those models years ago, but I think those models are still very interesting and very useful. Does the patient has postural problem? Does he have a dysfunction problem? Does he have a derangement problem? What do we understand under the definition derangement? Well, many people talk about a disc bulging, a disc protrusion, a hernia, this kind of things, sciatica, and so on. But to be honest, I don't like this terminology too much. I come back to that a little bit later on during the webinar, because I believe that putting ideas in the mind of the patient, you have a hernia or you have a disc protrusion or whatever, that on the brain level, on the perception of the patient, this is not always so interesting. But okay, more about that. But again, regarding the diagnostic aspect, I refer you to my online learning program. But this is certainly something we are all confronted with. Yeah? Patients have a kind of back problem. Yeah. Perhaps they have a lot of pain, perhaps they don't have so much pain, perhaps they have radiation of pain. And certainly with chronic patients, what do we see all the time? They develop some kind of fear avoidance behavior. I may not do that anymore. I have to be careful with this. I can't do this anymore. This is a real disaster. The moment that patients start believing this and start incorporating this, I have to be careful for the rest of my life, and I may not run anymore, and I may not swim anymore, and I may not do this anymore. This is the ideal recipe to become an even more chronic patient. And there, we as a therapist, we have a huge responsibility. Yeah. And at first, the patient is visiting mostly his doctor. Well, there the doctor also has a huge responsibility to be careful which kind of diagnosis he shares with his patient. And then perhaps later on they come to the physio, and we have more time. Yeah, That's normal. We spend more time with the patient, so we have more opportunity to talk, to guide. We also have a very huge responsibility to guide the patient and to make sure he's not falling in the trap of the fear avoidance behavior. But okay, we would like to do prevention. We would like to do what I call active prevention. Well, prevention of mechanical back pain is only successful when we know what are the predisposing factors. And actually, there are a number of predisposing factors. And one of those things is, our sitting posture. Look how we sit all the time. And you have, of course, dozens of variations in the sitting posture. Actually, the way in which this lady is sitting, some people say, oh, it's not good, it's not ergonomic. Well, actually, for me, no problem. It's okay. You know, one of the important elements in the prevention of back pain is, according to my opinion, I try to avoid to forbid things to the patient. Perhaps once in a while he's going to change some things, he's going to adapt some things, but really forbidding, that's not good, and you have to do it like this, I don't think that is very productive. Yeah, that's also an original way to sit at your desk, but okay, why not? There are dozens of ways to sit at your desk, and of course you have the ergonomical aspect of the height of your desk, your chair, how is your screen positioned, and so on and so on. But tonight we're not going to talk about this. This is a very nice illustration of different sitting postures. On the left side, you have what I call the typical open door male sitting position, and on the right side, that's a super magnificent, elegant female sitting posture. And if you ask me, are those good postures? Then I say, okay, no problem. Everything must be possible. But imagine our patient has quite a lot of pain now, and then he's sitting in, let's say, in a sitting posture like illustrated, like the man is sitting on the left side. Then don't be surprised that afterwards perhaps you have temporarily a little bit more pain. This is absolutely normal, and that's something we also have to explain to our patient. Sometimes, human beings, we are strange creatures. Yeah, sometimes we do spontaneously very good things. We don't think about it, but if you look, and I'm just going to try to do something here, if the technology wants. But the technology doesn't always want. Yeah, okay. Look at that guy, how he's sitting. Yeah, he's respecting his lumbar lordosis in a spontaneous way, in a natural way, and that's going to be one of the key elements in prevention of back pain. Try once in a while to respect your natural lordosis. He doesn't do any effort. He didn't know I was taking this picture. He's just sitting in a superposition. But if you then look at those people, well, this is flexion, 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 flexion. Okay, good. Must be possible. But people have to realize when they sit too long in the same position, whether it is a so-called good position or a less optimal position, then this is not the best idea. So I'm a big fan of variation. And for instance, this type of chair, personally, I use that in my clinic when I have to do treatments from a sitting position. I love to sit on that kind of chair, but then with wheels under it. It keeps me moving. It keeps me mobile. It's very relaxing for my back. Okay, that was predisposing factor number 1. Predisposing factor number 2, we are flexion people. Perhaps we don't realize it, but we constantly flex. Okay, well, indiscreet question. How did you get out of your bed this morning? Yeah. Perhaps you were lying on your back. And most of us, when we come out of our bed, what happens? And we have immediately a fantastic flexion position. And if the patient is experiencing back pain at this moment, then the patient already discovered that, that's not the best idea. I have to lie on my side, flex my legs, and then roll out of my bed. We all know that. But knowing is one thing. Putting it into practice, that's of course another thing. This morning you were brushing your teeth, you were in the bathroom. In which position were you? Most likely you were in a slightly flexed position. Okay, putting on your shoes, flexing. Let's imagine patient has a small child, and we have to put the child in the car and bring the child to the daycare mother. This is flexion, and then your day even didn't start at work. Because what do we see at work? We constantly see flexion and rotation. I had the pleasure already to guide some people in companies, in multinationals, in small companies, to inspire them a little bit and to give them some information how they can be more back friendly. Wherever I come, no exception. Is it industry? Is it logistics? Service department? Wherever, I see the same always. Flexion. For instance, that lady, you could suppose that her job is less, let's say, less demanding or less dangerous for the back than those guys. But during a sales period, for instance, this lady is flexing 600 times a day, and at the end of the day, be sure she's feeling her back. Or you just take something from the floor, so it doesn't have to be a heavy load. Just take something light from the floor. That could be enough to provoke some misery. And those guys, they keep on flexing. For instance, that lady, she doesn't have any other choice. She doesn't have any other option. She doesn't have the space. She can't do that in a so-called ergonomical position. So, what is going to be the solution? Well, a possible solution I will share with you a little bit later on during this webinar. But in the meantime, people keep on flexing. And this is a major problem. And the third predisposing factor, people don't compensate enough. For instance, that lady is doing, let's say, quite intensive extension movement. But if you ask to the patient, do you do that once in a while during your activities? The absolute majority of the patients are going to say, no, never did that before. And some patients, they say, oh yeah, sometimes I do that. Yeah, I have the feeling it's good for me. I don't know why, but yeah, sometimes I do that. Well, that's going to be sometimes, well, actually quite often, is going to be an interesting compensation movement, but more about that a little bit later. So far, the good news. Those predisposing factors, those are elements we can influence. It's just a matter of, here, not only think about it, but also do it. But then, unfortunately, I also have some bad news. And the bad news, this is something I don't share with my patient. This is just for you and me, just for the professionals. There are some anatomical, let's say, malconstructions, which are still the result of the transition from quadripodal to bipodal. And one of those things is that, let me use the whiteboard again. If you look at the annular structure of the disc, the annular structure here anterior is much more dense, is much more stronger in comparison with the annular structure here posterior. The nucleus doesn't lie exactly in the middle, but the nucleus lies a little bit more posterior. So you can imagine, if we do a lot of flexion, and we only do flexion, then you get more and more tension here on those posterior fibers of the disc. And perhaps this could lead to some kind of internal derangement. So we can't change that. That's for the time being, that's life. Okay. Another little thing is, if you look at the posterior longitudinal ligament, what is very striking is that at the lower lumbar levels over here and over there, you see that the ligament is pretty narrow. So if you look at the disc from a bird perspective, then yeah, the disc just has a tiny little piece left of posterior longitudinal ligament as a so-called protection, and it's easier to get some kind of internal derangement in that direction. But okay, we also don't have to exaggerate this. But okay, those are structural differences. So it is important from the preventive point of view. Let's respect the natural lordotic design as much as we can, because that's in fact not a good idea, not a bad idea, sorry. But how can we do that? And strangely enough, I still see and hear all over the world that people have to do back reinforcing exercises, abdominal muscle exercises. There are even many fitness centers around the world who make publicity with the slogan, make your back stronger, train your muscles, and so on and so on. Making your back stronger, is that going to make sure that you respect more your lumbar lordosis? No way. Yeah, that's good for your well-being and the aesthetic aspect and all whatever, but it doesn't have a real preventive element. It's far more interesting, also according to this reference, to focus on neuromuscular coordination. In other words, to focus on proprioceptive exercise. Yeah? And we all know that. But I would like to share this reference with you. That was an interesting study where they compared two groups, and they gave trunk balance exercise or proprioceptive exercises with flexibility exercises, and another group didn't get flexibility exercises, but they got strengthening exercises instead. So more specifically, both groups got those kind of exercises, and then on the one hand, the proprioceptive exercise, on the other hand, the muscle reinforcing exercise. But I'm going to hydrate a little bit first. Well, what was the outcome? The outcome was that actually the people who did the strengthening exercises, they didn't have as good an outcome for what is concerned functional activity, comfort, and so on, as the people who did the proprioceptive exercise. I would like to show you a fantastic proprioceptive exercise tool. And I took this picture when I was teaching courses in Brazil. And this picture has been taken in a specific revalidation center, where they still use a series of those phenomenal artistic tools. And can you imagine? Those tools have been produced, I believe, in 1927, yeah, by a German company. And they, as far as I know, they still use them today. But of course, you can do proprioceptive exercise on a much easier way. You are familiar with basic exercises using exercise balls and so on. Often, one of the things that the patient shares with us is, I have been told that my lumbar spine is too hollow. They don't use the word lordosis, of course, but my back is too hollow. And then sometimes they expect that we are going to do exercises to make sure that the lumbar spine is not too hollow anymore. As I briefly mentioned before, hey, doing exercises to change the curve of your spine with adult patients doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah, that's, according to my opinion, 100% waste of time. And by the way, what is a hyperlordosis? What is a hypolordosis? I don't know. If you look at this reference, you see that in an asymptomatic population, there is quite a lot of difference in angle of lordosis. Yeah? So actually, I don't care at all. Okay, there's one exception, this very rare pathology of the kissing spines, where you have really periosteal contact between the spinous processes, but okay, that's very rare. So let's not waste too much time on that. Sometimes, when I advise the patient to do some extension exercise, some patients say, oh, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Somebody, another therapist probably told him, not good for you. Okay. Is extension exercise always a good idea? No. Later during the webinar, I will tell you when it is not a good idea. Yeah. But if you just also look at those data, there's nothing wrong with extension. Yeah. Extension is also a good movement direction. But okay, in certain situations, we may not do it. But more about that, I promise, later. Yeah, and then, today's story. How can we avoid problems? Yeah. Which story are we going to tell to our patient? Which instructions are we going to give to our patient? Well, keep it simple and keep it safe. We are all professionals. Yeah, okay, that's our life. Okay, we know what we're talking about, and we know a lot of those things. And one big mistake we can do is tell too much to the patient. You're going to be surprised when you give information to the patient, how easy it is for the patient not to understand you. For us, it's logical. Yeah, we are familiar with that. But we have to keep in mind that the majority of our patients, they don't have a clue. And of course, this is normal. So make it simple. And a second element is make it practical. Yeah. In so many back schools, revalidation departments, and so on, they give the patient 10, 15 different exercises, and they give a booklet with a series of exercises. Okay, nice. But we forget one thing. We are human. In other words, once in a while, we are lazy. And if I give you now 5 different exercises, even just 5, and say you have to do this at home, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. By the way, by the time he's leaving your clinic, he already forgot 2. By the time he's arriving at home, he forgot 4. That's normal. That's logical. So I think we have to do that in a different way. Always keep in mind the predisposing factors, which we discussed earlier. Yeah, remember, sitting posture, the fact that we flex all the time, the fact that we don't compensate enough. So what I'm going to share with you now is my personal my personal strategy. I don't say it's the best. I don't say you have to do that as from now. No, it's just a friendly suggestion in your direction. Whatever you like from that story, you can incorporate in your preventive strategy. Whatever you don't need, well, you don't use it. Please feel 100% free to do with this information whatever you think is the best for your patient. Later on in the webinar, I'm going to give you some tools which you can also download. But everything, for me personally, everything starts with my good friend, the spine. And I use this demo model to explain some things to the patient in a very easy way. I say, listen, this is your spine, okay? So in normal circumstances, now I'm talking to the patient. I'm not talking to you now, okay? In normal circumstances, there's a head over here, and you have some legs over there, and this is your belly, and this is your back, and those things you see over here, yeah, those are the things which you can feel when you palpate along your own spine. And you see that this spine has some particular shape. If somebody tells to you keep your spine straight, what do we mean by that? Is that a straight spine? Yeah, but that's not how it looks like in reality. You see that there are some curves, yeah? Here in the neck, it's a little bit hollow. Here in the middle, it's just the opposite. And now in your back and your lower back, you see by nature, this is also a little bit hollow. Well, that's going to be important a little bit later on. And what you also see is you have different vertebra, okay? And in between each vertebra, you have a little cushion. And we call that the disc. And that cushion is responsible for the fact that we can move in all the directions we want. Yeah. But probably today, that cushion is also going to be is going to play a role in the fact that you have pain today. What did you tell me? What did you tell me during when I was asking you some questions? I asked you, how did your back problem start? And then, okay, so many patients say the same. Huh? They are doing a flexion movement, most likely also with some torsion element. Okay, not a big problem. And then they come back, and oncoming, oh, I feel something in my back. I feel a twinge, and I am blocked. Or it comes on slowly. That's also possible. But this is a story we very often hear. And then I repeat that with the patient. I say, what did you tell me a few minutes ago? You were in this kind of position, and then you turned a little bit, and then ooh. Did you ever eat an ice cream? An ice cream between two cookies, between two waffles? Oh, of course. What happens when you eat an ice cream and you push on one side? What happens with the ice cream on the other side? It comes out. And to put it in a more, let's say, a plastic illustration, I say, listen, well, you didn't respect enough this shape, and okay, a certain moment you were in this position, and then those vertebrae, they come closer here a little bit, and then there they open. This is absolutely normal. And then you get some more tension on some parts of this little cushion here, and this could change some pressures over there, which are possibly responsible for the problem you have now. And every patient understands that. And did you notice now that I didn't use the word hernia, I didn't use the word bulging, I didn't use the word disc protrusion? No. I just talk about a possible temporary mechanical malfunctioning because of different pressure changes in this intervertebral joint, more specifically the disc. So that's the basic story I tell to the patient. So the patient understands that, okay, lordosis, keeping your spine hollow is not a bad idea. But okay, too much flexion, too long, too much, that's a less optimal idea, but I'm not the holy pope, fortunately. I told you at the beginning of the webinar, I'm not going to forbid anything. Everything must be possible. The patient must be able to recuperate his full function. And flexion is part of his full function. So, okay, we're going to aim for regaining mobility in all different directions. But perhaps now in this phase, too much flexion, think of the waffle with ice cream, is not the best idea. Okay. After this webinar, probably I'm going to be in my couch tonight, watching some TV. I'm like this. Is that an ergonomical position? Of course not. Theoretically not. But I don't care. I don't have any problem. I don't care. It must be possible. But if your patient has, let's say, a pretty nice posterior internal derangement, let's say disc deformation, he can sit like this. But then he's going to notice when he stands up, he said, oh, I feel like as if I am 80 years old and I'm just 40. Then, of course, it's completely normal. So make sure that the patient understands, let's say, the ice cream story. Here, I design it a little bit in an exaggerated way, but it's the concept. The patients who say, my vertebra is not on its place and the disc came out and all that kind of stuff. Let's not exaggerate with that. Use a more moderate alternative terminology. So sometimes extension is not a bad idea. So as I mentioned before, and I really would like to emphasize that, don't frighten the patient with horror scenarios. I hear and I see that so often. Oh, you have so much arthrosis. Oh, your back is completely degenerated. And actually, you have more degeneration than what we expect for people at your age. And you have a hernia, and you have a disc protrusion, and we can't do too much for you anymore, and so on and so on. Try to avoid that, because it's really strange what those kind of, let's say, of this kind of exposure, what it does with the brain of the patient. Yeah? Remember what I told you about the fear avoidance behavior? Yeah? Something I hear so often. When I asked the patient, I said, "No, tell me, when did it start, your complaint, or did you already had complaints before?" And so often, one of the first things the patient is saying, "I have 2 hernias in my lower back. I also have one in my neck, already 5 years long." Boom! Explosion, drama. There's something happening in the brain. Since 5 years, this patient is thinking, "I'm in the shit." Forgive me the expression. Yeah? And I may not do that anymore, and I have to be careful, and please try to avoid that. No? Sometimes I have the impression, and so as you know, okay, the International Training Center we have over here, that's in Belgium, located along at the Belgian coast in a wonderful village you should visit once. I don't know what's in the drinking water in Belgium, but this quote, this is so phenomenal frequent. I think sometimes there's a hernia competition. The patient is proud that he has 3 hernias. Yeah. Okay, I don't get it. So we have to inform the patient about the fact that, hey, listen, you have a problem now. And I understand it's very annoying. And I understand it is disabling. And I understand you can't do at this moment what you like to do. But keep in mind that in the absolute majority of the cases, this is a temporary problem. Okay? It's not for 5 years. And this is so important. I'm going to say a strange quote, which just comes up in my brain right now. And forgive me for saying that, but I really believe that many chronic back patients are also the result of the absence of treatment and guidance, because, for instance, the patient didn't look for help, and the fact that at the beginning we didn't focus enough on, let's say, the self-healing capacity, and that we put the patient too much at the beginning in this volcano scenario. There's always the very first time that the patient goes to a doctor or a physio, but the very first time he has a back problem. Well, it is so important to take our responsibility during this first time and to provide, let's say, more useful information. Yeah, okay. Patients come to us, they have a problem, and what is their question? Fix it. Yeah? So often, I come to you, I pay you, I have a problem, you fix it. And then we have to do something with our hands, or the doctor's prescribing medication or whatever, and that's it. I strongly disagree with that. The question should not be, what can I do for you? The questions should be, what can you do for yourself? And therefore, during the years, I tried to use several tools, and what you see here is just, that was a little booklet I made. I didn't make those drawings, so I have to give all the respect to the people who made those drawings, but they're very old drawings. But thank you to the artist. Just 10 pages where I describe some things you are all familiar with. Yeah, okay. And this is good, and this is not good. Yeah, you see here the ice cream effect, and how you are lifting things in a good way, in a less optimal way. The combination of flexion and rotation is perhaps not the best idea, and so on and so on. Yeah, sitting postures, cleaning positions. Okay, we know that. Yeah. But I used that little booklet as a kind of alibi. When I saw that my patient was doing strange things, then I referred to the little booklet and I said, hey, what are you doing? We know what you see on the screen now. We know that certain movements are less optimal and that other movements are very useful. Yeah, we know that. And we briefly explain that to the patient. But for instance, something very simple. Yeah, if you look, for instance, at this posture here, that's something that many people forget. But yeah, we are all familiar with this cleaning challenge, yeah, or this cleaning challenge. Yeah. But if you want to do it in this way, one of the things many patients say, yeah, I can't do that because I have a meniscal problem, because I have a knee replacement or whatever. Yeah. So we have to come up with another solution. I have a challenge for you. We all go to the supermarket, and you have to put this package of milk in the carriage. And you all know that the left version is the nice theoretical ergonomical position, and the right version is not the optimal position. We know that. Okay. You come out of the supermarket, you have to load everything you bought in your car. And as you can see over here, this is also not the best position, but okay, we just do it. And we keep on doing it. And then you come at home, and at home you have to unload and you have to install everything in your kitchen, and so on and so on. And then some people afterwards, they have a kind of sore back. They feel, perhaps I did a little bit too much. What is the trick? And this is the main message I give to many of my patients. Okay, your challenge, the package of milk, you have to transfer it from that position to another position. Okay? So what are you going to do? The first step is risk analysis. Expensive word. You're standing in the supermarket, and you see that this package of milk is in a little bit an unpractical position. But okay, you have to take it. So you know that you're going to do it in a, let's say, less back-friendly way. You know that. What are you going to do then? Before you do it, then you're going to do an extension movement. You're going to move as far as you can towards the back. And then you take the milk, and then you do it again. And then you continue with your shopping. When you tell that to the patient, they understand. But understanding is one thing, doing is another thing. And then I immediately anticipate. Yeah, I know. You go to the supermarket Friday evening, Saturday morning, whatever, and there are a lot of people over there, and you don't want to make a fool out of yourself. Yeah, but all the people around in the soup, and you are going to be the only one who is, people are going to laugh with me. And my answer is, yes, that's possible. So what? Also smile. You can solve a lot of things with a smile. They know me. In a local supermarket, they know me. I'm the strange guy that once in a while does this. And I try to motivate other people to also to join me. You just have one back. And I say to the patient, listen, you have two shoulders. If you screw up one shoulder, okay, bad luck. You have one left. You just have one back. And like this, I try to, let's say, I try to sell the story to my patient. But this is a key element which is valid in our private life, in our professional life. Sometimes those who know me, you know that my wife is also a physio, and we work together. We have two clinics, but we work together. And my wife is sometimes so concentrated when she's treating patients that she's in such a bad position for her back, and in the evening she says, "Oh, I feel my back." No wonder, yeah. We take care of our patients, but sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves too. So what I tell here is not only for our patients, but is also for ourselves. Yeah. Okay. What is the best sitting posture? I ask it to you. Take your time to have a look at the picture. In the meantime, I'm going to take care of hydration again. You know what? It's difficult, huh? You know what? When I show this picture during live courses, you know what most of the people answer? And it's a little bit similar to the result of this study. Most of the people choose number 5 and 9. What does that mean? The ideal sitting posture does not exist. It all depends on your personal interpretation. And I believe that the truth, between brackets, lies somewhere in the middle. You don't have to be in a kyphotic position. You don't have to be in a hyperlordotic position, somewhere in the middle. But as I told you earlier, put in the brain of the patient variation, variation, variation. Certainly in an office environment, make sure that they organize their office, that the printer and the copy machine and the coffee machine, they are all in different corners of the office, so that the collaborators are forced to stand up and to move. Sitting a long time can cause some fatigue, some muscular fatigue, and thus the sitting posture has an affect this. And that was also a nice article. And what was the conclusion? That sitting in an inclined position, so the left version, caused less fast fatigue of your lumbar muscles in comparison to sitting in a flat position. But okay, keep that in mind. But until now, I'm talking about the advantages of doing a regular extension. But if you look at the lady on the left side, constantly, she's doing extension stuff. And she can also have back pain. And those guys who are standing, they're standing, okay, standing in a good position. But they are standing all day long, practically the same position. Once in a while, there is some torsion. They have to turn because they have to take some material there on the left side. They are too long in the same position. And then I'm not going to advise to those people to do extension exercise. No. That lady is already doing more than enough extension. No, she has to compensate. She has to do flexion exercise once in a while, go in the other direction. And this is, in fact, basic logic. Yeah, that's the basis of prevention. Yeah? If you have too much flexion, go to extension. If you have too much extension, go to flexion. Yeah? And the major challenge, I don't have time. Yeah, once in a while, I ask my patient, did you do your exercise? And then very often, a patient says, no. I say, oh yeah? And how many times? When I thought about it. Okay. And how many times did you think about it? 3-4 times. Certainly when they have an acute problem at this moment, then the exercise strategy is going to be a little bit more intense than that. Yeah, I'll show you that a little bit later. Yeah? Okay, so I don't have time is a lousy excuse. A little side remark. Of course, your bed is an interesting element in the prevention of back pain. Sleeping, a good sleeping quality, that's certainly very interesting. And good sleeping quality not only depends on the bed on which you're sleeping, it also depends, of course, of a lot of other factors and also psychological factors and so on and so on. But it strikes me that so many colleagues say to their patient, oh, you can't sleep on your belly. This is a bad sleeping posture. Really? Are you sure? I don't know. We're in a perfect position. I know, for your neck, that's not always interesting. So prone sleepers don't use a big cushion or a high cushion, use a very flat cushion. But it is possible that a patient now has some kind of internal derangement and he used to be very happy sleeping on his abdomen, but now it's misery. I can't sleep on my abdomen anymore. It hurts in my back. Oh, something squeezes over there. It's perfectly possible. You can give one little trick to the patient. Put a little cushion under your abdomen if you like to stay in prone lying position. And most likely, this little cushion is already going to change the discomfort you have from this position, because, of course, there is some internal derangement there interfering. So that could be useful. Okay. We know the theory, nice, but I gave you the example of the supermarket. It's not always possible for practical reasons that, you respect some ergonomical rules. And then the question is, what? I already gave you an answer. You compensate before and you compensate after. You don't compensate 6 hours later. Yeah, when the patient is working in the garden, and many patients are flexing, and then in the evening they sit on the couch, in a fantastic lordotic position, kyphotic position. They watch the television. And they say, oh, my garden is beautiful, but I feel my muscles. Yeah, of course you feel them. Flexing all the time. During working in the garden, make sure that once in a while you compensate. And this This is a message we have to put in the brain of the patient, and we have to check that regularly. We have to ask, is he doing it? And show me how you do it. Because in many cases they do it, I call it, in a wishy-washy way. Yeah, guide them, help them, show them how it is done in a more optimal way. Okay. By the way, some of you are certainly familiar with the McKenzie method, and are familiar with those kind of booklets written by Robin McKenzie and colleagues, how to treat your own back, how to treat your own neck. Personally, I have to be honest, I'm a fan. I like those booklets, but how many pages? Yeah, it's about 70 pages. Interesting, valuable information. But we have another problem again. We are still human. And this implies that once in a while we are lazy. When I ask the patient, okay, here, you have the booklet, here, read it. Yeah. And when I ask the patient later on, and did you read the book? Was it interesting? The majority of the patients say, no. Or, I had a look at it. And this is a pity, because it's such useful information, but there is some kind of barrier. Yeah, it's so difficult to get it in the brain of the patient. And then, well, I used to spend a lot of time in airplanes, teaching courses all over the world. And as you certainly know, in the bigger airplanes, the safety instructions are illustrated on video. But in the smaller airplanes, the safety instructions are illustrated live. You know that. Huh? The cabin staff saying, okay, this airplane has 6 emergency exits, illuminated stripes, blah, 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 blah. And the end of the story is always, have a look at the flight safety instruction card in the seat pocket in front of you. And then I thought with myself, I say, ha ha ha, that's the trick. I'm going to summarize those 70 pages of McKenzie. I'm going to summarize that on 2 pages. And then I made the back instruction card. Just 2 pages. And 2 pages is much more practical for our patient than 70 pages. Okay. For those of you who registered for this webinar, and you are live with me here, then look at the right side of your screen. I'm going to share this back instruction card with you. So if everything is okay, you must see those 2 files on the right side on your screen. I'm going to leave them there. You can download it. Yeah, you can copy that for your patients. You can use that as much as you want. I'm happy when you copy that. My aim is to get as many people worldwide in the preventive story, and you are going to be my ambassadors. Yeah, as a professional healthcare professional, you are going to spread the message and make sure patients take care more of prevention. Yeah? Okay. By the way, at the end of this webinar, I'm also going to share all those slides with you. You receive, if you registered for this webinar, you receive all the slides I'm showing. Just briefly about the back instruction card. I mentioned when you can't do it, and I mentioned when you can do it. This is easily understandable for our patients. How you have to do it, whatever exercise you do, go to the end, move to the end. Show that to the patient, let him do it in front of your eyes, and correct him. Because most patients, is it an extension exercise, is it a flexion exercise, whatever, they don't go far enough. And I asked them why it's good. I tell them why it's good. Not just say, do this, do that, and don't give them a good reason. Then they're going to say, yeah, I will. No, but I come back to the beginning of my story. Remember? I explained to the patient that he could have a problem, the ice cream problem. Yeah? Well, this kind of exercise is partly interesting to reduce the risk to an ice cream problem, and also, of course, is interesting to maintain the flexibility in a lot of structures in the neighborhood, which is, of course, also important. But explain it to your patient in a simple way. And then, of course, we also talk about safety. Very often when the patient has an internal derangement, a posterior internal derangement, as you now know during this webinar, we're going to advise him to do regular extension exercise. But he has to keep in mind one very important element. And this element is, when you do this exercise and you produce some back pain, okay, no problem. This can happen. So don't let it stop you. But let's imagine you have at this moment back pain. You do the exercise and you produce some pain somewhere in the leg, and then you come back to neutral and the pain goes away, and you go back to extension and you produce pain again. Stop. This exercise is not suitable for you today. Tomorrow perhaps, yes, but not today. Exactly the same with the more intensive exercise you do in the morning, yeah, and in the evening. Just you get out of bed, you go to the bathroom first, and then perhaps you can do this kind of exercise. Stay 10 seconds in this position. This is more intensive than the version in standing. So a little bit more back pain, no problem. You produce leg pain, please stop. Make sure that the patient understands what you're talking about, okay? That he really gets the message. Of course, as I mentioned before, we also need flexion exercise. We're always going to incorporate the two, depending on the situation. But let's imagine the patient has a so-called acute lumbago, a big posterocentral internal derangement. Well, after a few weeks, let's not forget also to incorporate flexion exercise. And then slowly but surely, I am reaching the end of today's story. I hope that you also have the opportunity to travel once in a while, as our patients do. Also, take care of those preventive elements in your leisure time, not only during your professional time, and certainly on traveling. Wouldn't it be a pity that you travel and you fly and you come on the airport of your destination, and then you have to pick up your luggage? I'm sure you know the feeling. Oh, my luggage is in very, let's say, uncomfortable position. Of course, my luggage is very heavy, and then you have to pick it up like this gentleman is doing. Don't be surprised that your back is not very pleased with that. And then your holiday is disturbed. That would be a pity. So what you do, or what you advise your patient to do in that certain situation, you see your luggage is in an uncomfortable, let's say, unpractical position. It's exactly the same story as in the supermarket. Before you pick up the luggage, do an extension exercise. You pick up the luggage, do an extension exercise again, and you continue your way. Yes, They already know me. I think the security people at the Brussels airport, baggage belt number 2, where I'm quite often, once in a while they also have to smile when they see that strange guy there doing something strange movement. Yeah? But okay, you only have one bag. And then you arrive at your real destination, and what do I see? I see this lady lying in a fantastic position. Yeah. Is it a good idea to lie all afternoon in this position? No way. Yeah, that's good for 15 minutes, half an hour, so to speak, but variation is absolutely necessary. I would also like to draw your attention to an app I came across. This is an app specifically developed for healthcare workers, and it's full of film illustrations with avatars which illustrate many professional situations, but then purely for us professionals, how you transfer a patient from the bed to the sofa, from the wheelchair to the sofa, and so on and so on. Many situations. And my big respect for the people who developed that. It's a free app. Yeah, fantastic. So just go to youliftapp.com. And yeah, personally, yeah, congratulations. It's interesting extra information. And then something else. I not only give my back instruction card to the patient, I have it in different languages. If you would like to have another version than the English version, I have also a Russian version, I have a Polish version, I have even a Chinese version. If that would help you, just email me and you can get it. But I refer my patients to my website, and on my website I put a little film, 6 minutes and 19 seconds. Also, again, keep it simple, keep it safe, not too much. And in those 6.5 minutes, I explain briefly to the patient what I explained you now in 1 hour and 11 minutes until now. Basic, simple, to the point. And I ask my patients to watch that film. One little problem, this film is in Dutch language, in Flemish language, so I presume this is not very interesting for you. But a few days ago, and when I was preparing the last details for this webinar, I re-edited this film and I put English subtitles on the film. So go to my YouTube channel, Orthopaedic Medicine Courses, and you can find the film over there. After this webinar, only for those who registered, you're also going to get an email. And in this email, I also put the link to that film. Okay? So, knowledge without action is irrelevant. And before I forget it, I have to keep my promises, of course. There's another file you can download. So if you look now on the right side of your screen, you have a PDF file over there with all the slides I used in this presentation. Okay, then whenever you have time, you can watch that again. You also will receive in the email later on a replay link. You can also rewatch the webinar in the next week. And after that, I'm going to put it on YouTube in a hidden link, which I can also send to you. But okay, action. Well, I would like to take the opportunity to invite you to come to our training center over here in Belgium for the exclusive Mastermind private training program. As I told you, maximum 4 guests are allowed. And during 7 days in a row, we have a great time together. You can find all the information on cidex.eu/mastermind. lot of films, a lot of impressions of my former guests, which are coming from really all over the world. Well, get some inspiration over there, and perhaps next year we will meet or on another occasion. So this is the end of today's story. I would like to thank you all for joining me in this webinar, for taking your time to be live with me. And I hope it was interesting for you, and I certainly hope you can incorporate some of those things according to your wishes in your daily practice. And of course, if you have any further questions, you can always reach me through celiax.eu or info@celiax.eu or through the contact form on the website. If I can help you, it's going to be my pleasure. So, if you have any further questions, not necessarily now, but you can ask questions in the chat if you want, no problem. But if you have questions in the next days, you know where you can find me. You can contact me through the website. So thank you very much for joining. I wish you a fine continuation of the rest of the day, and perhaps one day we meet live. Thank you very much. All the best. Oh, I see just that a message is coming in the chat. Thank you. Great as always. Thank you very much for the kind feedback. It's my pleasure. Super that you joined over here. And Darek is saying, I like the way you conduct your lectures. Very useful webinar. The role of the therapist is to open the door to a better life for our patient. Whether he opens it wider depends on himself. Thank you very much for today. Well, Darek, thank you very much for such a nice feedback. This is the reason why, I do this, why I like it. It's my passion. And without you, it wouldn't be possible. So, time to say goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much. Ciao.